Boo. So we're gonna learn about platelets, arteries, veins, and capillaries, and this video may be split into two parts. I'm not sure, but yeah, it just may be split into two parts. So just a little FYI. So firstly, platelets. So when they're inactive, the shape of platelets is a plate-like, but when they are active, the shape is like dendritic, meaning it's spiky. And there's actually no nucleus due to them being an incomplete cell and fragments of larger cells. And it also prevents like blood loss when you get a cut because they form a clot. So basically, when you get a cut, the platelets form a clot in order to prevent like excessive blood loss. And its structure is related to and functions because they are chemicals in the platelets that allow them to stick to damaged blood vessels and allow them to stick to damaged blood vessels and other platelets to form the clot. So basically, yeah, that's how its structure is related to and function because there's chemicals inside that allows them to, form clots due to sticking to damaged blood vessels and other platelets. So now we have arteries. So arteries carries blood away from the heart, and you can remember that from away having the letter A, which stands for arteries. And there's actually no valves because it has there's like high pressure, meaning blood can flow in like one direction. So no valves are needed. And then also it's high blood pressure. There's high pressure in the arteries to like prevent them from bursting out, which is actually what I'll talk about soon. And they have a small hole in the middle where blood flows through, and that is called the lumen. And there's also thick muscle walls and elastic tissue. So basically, there's a small hole in the arteries that's called the lumen. That's where the blood flows, and then it's also high pressure as well. And there's no valves. And then there's no valves because it can keep moving forward. And now there's thick muscle walls to allow them handle high pressure and not burst. So there's thick muscle walls to allow arteries to handle high blood pressure and not burst. And there's also elastic tissue that allows arteries to stretch when blood is pumping. So basically, the elastic tissues allow arteries to stretch when blood is pumping, and then there's thick muscle walls to allow the arteries handle high blood pressure, which is also why valves are needed and not burst. So yeah, thick muscle walls allows the arteries to handle high blood pressure and not burst, and elastic tissues allows the arteries to stretch when blood's in the capillaries, like when blood is pumping. Yeah. So elastics allows arteries to stretch when blood is pumping, and thick muscle walls allow to keep high blood pressure so it doesn't the arteries doesn't burst. And then there's also no valves because it can keep one directional blood flow. And there's a small hole called lumen. So yeah, basically there's a small hole in the arteries called the lumen, and that's where the blood flows. There's no valve because it has high blood pressure, so it can keep one directional blood flow, and it has a thick muscle walls to handle high pressure and prevent arteries from bursting out, and then elastic tissues to allow arteries to stretch out when blood is pumping throughout the heart. And then veins carry blood to the heart. Arteries carry blood away from the heart, while veins carry blood to the heart now. And it's basically the opposite of the arteries. So as we know, in arteries there is a small hole in there called the lumen. And here veins still have a lumen, except they're large. And arteries have thick muscle layers and elastic tissue, while in here veins have thin walls and less elastic tissue. And in arteries, they didn't have valves, but in here, they do have valves. And then, yeah, so there's thin, how its structure is related to its function because it's thin muscle walls, because there's thin muscle walls since in arteries, there's thick muscle walls because the blood pressure is high. But in here, there's thin because the blood pressure is low. And then there's also valves this time to maintain the blood flow. So basically, just to summarize everything so far. Platelets don't have a nucleus because they're fragments of larger cells and then also an incomplete cell. And then when it's inactive, they're plate-like shape, but when they are active, they have dentures, which is spikes on them. And its function is to also form clots when you get a cut to prevent excessive blood loss. And its structure is related to the function because there's chemicals inside the platelets that allow them to stick to damaged blood vessels and other platelets to form the clot. And then its arteries, its function is that it carries blood away from the heart, and there's also a small hole in the arteries that have blood flow called the lumen, and there's also a thick muscle wall and elastic tissue. And there's also valves inside as well. And then, there's no valves inside. There's no valves in the arteries. There's no valves since it can maintain the directional blood flow. And then there's thick muscle walls to prevent the arteries from bursting out and due to high pressure. And then elastics just allow the arteries to stretch while blood is pumping through. And then finally, just the veins, a little summary once again. It carries blood to the heart, and it has a thin muscle walls and less elastic tissue, and it also has a large lumen which is still where the blood flows. And in arteries, there were no valves, but in here there are valves. And then there's valves to make sure there's one directional blood flow, and then also for the thin muscle walls, it's thin because there is low blood pressure. So yeah, that's basically everything so far. And lastly, we have the capillaries. So the capillaries, there's actually the capillaries in both the circulatory system and the digestive system. And I will say this one more time. If you don't know what they are, check the video on my channel. So the capillaries makes the oxygen leave blood to go to body cells, and capillaries make carbon dioxide leave body cells and go in blood. So oxygen leaves blood and go to body cells. Carbon dioxide leave body cells to go to blood. And then capillaries also moves nutrients and waste between body cells. And they're actually the smallest blood vessels that erythrocytes go through. And there's also no valves, and it's 1 cell thick. And its structure is related to the function because since it's really small and only 1 cell thick, it makes it shorter for the erythrocytes, nutrients, and waste to go through. So that means there's more efficiency at gas exchange and yeah, it's just more efficiency for gas exchange. And then also, it's just travel shorter, which is helpful. So basically, just to summarize capillaries once again, it makes oxygen leave body cells and go to blood. Makes oxygen leave blood to go to body cells, and carbon dioxide leave body cells and go to blood. And then there's the smallest blood vessels that erythrocytes go through, and then there's also 1 cell thick and there's no valves at all. And it's just that because to create a shorter distance for the nutrients, waste, and blood, oxygen, carbon dioxide for. So that's shorter distance and more efficiency at gas exchange. So any questions, comment down below. It's actually one part that's surprising. And toodles.